Good evening, everyone. My name is Kim Harris, the treasurer for Sudden Valley Homeowners Association. And this is our Sudden Valley Finance Committee meeting that I am now calling to order at 6:35. The Finance Committee has a land acknowledgement and an anti-racism statement that is on the website for the board. And at this time, I'm going to do a roll call. So it looks like we have our board president, AJ Tischletter here. We have Gail Chiarello here and myself as the finance committee. We are waiting for one other person. And then for staff, we have Sam Bernhardt and Joel Haverling. I am going to make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
AJ seconds. And also, I am going to make a motion for us to approve the minutes from our May 19th and July 14th Finance Committee meetings.
Second.
Okay, that's seconded. And I'm going to modify the agenda to have our finance manager present the financial statements from June while we wait another of our committee members to come so that we can talk about the capital request. So I am going to pass the meeting over to Joel so we can talk about our June finances. And you usually share, are you able to share your screen, Joel?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Just 1 second. Okay, so everyone can see the financial statements?
Yes.
So I'll just start out with the balance sheet since it's the first page of the financial statements. And basically, as I've said in prior months, everything looks fine. There's nothing exciting going on with the balance sheet. Net operating assets look fine. Obviously, just, our latest condition of the SURF loan is now down to 1.19 million from 1.26 million at December 2020. This is just virtue of the monthly payments that we've been making on this every month. This is, I believe, scheduled to be paid off in 2028 if we just continue to make the payments like normal on it. I'm going to go ahead and just go to the main page, or probably the most important page, I would say, the consolidated income statement here. And in terms of what you're looking at, right? So basically, this column, this column right here is the month-to-date operating column, and then this is the most important column, really, the year-to-date 6-month ending numbers here. And so I'll just quickly touch on the month ending numbers. So we had net income 55,303 and net income so that's just for the month of June. Last year we had 57,980 for the end of month of June. So we're tracking pretty similar to what we did last year. In terms of like the year ending numbers, of course, the big difference now is we have $254,106 in net income at the end of June. This is year to date. So for the 6-month ending, $254,106 net income versus last year we had $12,035 in net income. Of course, the big difference this year versus last year is we forgave dues back in April 2020. This year, obviously, we didn't do that. Everything remained like normal in terms of dues and billing, and that obviously factors into the $254,106 in net income. Just in terms of handy thing about this statement, this is showing you from an organizational perspective, is you can see this is, this is the expense categories here. You can see the individual categories of what's under, what's over, or what's under budget for expenses, salary benefits under 234, contract and professional services, which is what the interim GM was billed out of, is going to be in here. So basically this 195.07 over expenditure and contract and professional services largely negates this $235,000 in savings for salary and benefits. So these two kind of, you could kind of think of that, but it's still ahead in terms of if you even net these two together. Now the collection rate, you can see year to date is 94.5% at the end of June 30, 2021. So we budgeted 95% collection rate. At the end of June, for June 2020, our collection rate year to date was 93.9%. So we are tracking better at the end of June than where we tracked last year at the end of June. So, and even at 93.9% at the end of June 2020, we still finish out the 2020 at a 95.5% collection rate. So we are on track in terms of for finishing out around that same collection rate, which means we would hit the budget or possibly even more budgeted of 95% collection rate. I've already calculated July's collection rates, and for the month to date collection rate for July was 94.9%. Year to date for July was 94.5%. Now year to date for at the end of July 2020 was 94.6%. So we're still real darn close to where we were year to date last year at this time, which means we're tracking to meet essentially what we did last year in terms of 95.5% collection rate or possibly even better, which is good. Expense to revenue ratio, which is just, when I say expense to revenue ratio, I'm just comparing what are total expenses right here to total revenue. So a lower number is always better with something like this or with this ratio. So for the end of June 2020, it was 88% expense to revenue ratio. The end of June 2020, it was, which we would expect to see that higher since our net income was worse. It was 99.3% a year ago. Last month, it was 88.6% at the end of May 2021. So it's improved from last month, which is good. Slight improvement, but still an improvement. Now the next page, the capital reserve funding page, this is basically just a page, a snapshot of our cash balances for our reserve accounts, meaning the capital reserve accounts and operating reserve accounts, so we have emergency operations and UDR accounts. But in terms of, the main ones, especially SURF, roads, capital reserve holding, mailbox, these are all up in terms of like year-end balances or projected year-end balances as compared to where we were a year ago. The only one that's down is UDR, and heck, I might as well get into that right now. So one element that feeds into this, can you see this SURF report or this capital reporting spreadsheet? Or you
Yes.
still, okay.
Yes.
So one big element of this page, so I'll look at the SURF page, is this obligated expenses right here. And so this comes from everything that the board has approved to date at the end of June. These are all the projects that have been approved by the board. And this page just obligates the whole amount. So this page just shows that the board, like for example, I'll just say the last thing that was approved on SURF, True Turf Greens Roller, 18,933 approved. If you went back and looked at the board agenda or the minutes for that meeting on May 27th. And then how much we've been invoiced and how much is left over. So essentially this just already earmarks ahead of time the full amount of what the board approved for those projects. So that 309,919 you'll see right here in terms of it's already subtracting that away from available cash. It's already obligated it. For roads, same thing. So here's the second sheet, and this is on the finance committee packet if you go online and look at the agenda. So these sheets will be on there. So here's the roads amount, everything the board has approved, and so it's all obligated. Here's the 813,789 obligated at the end of June. And then here it is right here, being taken away from roads. UDR, now the reason why UDR balances are down projected at the end of the year is because now we have more obligations to UDR that have been added to it. So through June, now we have the GM recruiting expense that the board approved on June 10th for 34,300. No billings have come in to be billed against it yet, but the full amount is included in this obligated balance. So it's already assuming that it's as good as spent, so to speak. And then there's the additional hazardous tree removal that was approved on May 27th board meeting, the 40,000, and that's what's increasing this UDR to 103,850, which then leads into this obligated amount, 103,850. So that's why total UDR is down, essentially, meaning the projected cash balance at the end of the year. Okay, so now getting into the now what we're looking at here is it's the income statement summary again on a departmental viewpoint. So like that net operations with, let me focus on now for you. So in this current month, this 55,303, this is for net operations. So that 55,303 ties back to here. So basically it's looking at the month to date, but it's broken out by department. So you can see what department caused what, so to speak. And the big thing on the biggest kind of headline on any of these sheets will definitely be the golf operations. So golf is coming in. This is the revenue for golf, 120,772. Last year it was 107,681 at the end of June of 2020, which is an increase of, real close to $13,000. Now, in terms of the total expenses for golf, so you would add the actual salary benefits amount with the actual all other expenses. So this 57,093 plus the 25,329 come up to 82,422. Now, last year at the end of June 2020 was 84,153. So real close in terms of the overall for the month from last year. So the expenses were actually just slightly down by about $1,700. Net income for golf was 38,350 for the month. Last year it was 23,708. So the net income was obviously increased for the month with which is what you would expect to see since the revenue's up and the expenses are slightly down. Now, looking at this as on a year-to-date perspective, so in terms of for golf, now we have revenues of 616,421 for the year. Last year, there were revenues of 455,457. Of course, golf was closed last year for approximately 4 or 5 weeks or so back in March. So we would expect to see the revenues up over last year at this point, since golf has been able to stay open the entire time. So we have an increase in revenue of about real close to $161,000 over last year. Actuals, in terms of if you add up the salaries, benefits, and then the other expenses, that comes up to $440,699. Last year it was real close to 385,000, which means the overall year expenses for the year through June for golf are up about 55,700. That's also something we would expect to see, especially since when golf was shut down for 4 or 5 weeks. So they were, their expenses were lower because of that month where they were shut down as well year to date at this point. So that's an expected thing to see. And in terms of the total net income for golf, it was 175,722 for the year. Last year, it was 70,458 year to date. So we're talking about 175 or approximately $105,000 increase in net income year to date as well, and they're better than budget by 135,169. So golf is doing really well, which is what we want to see, since golf is the biggest revenue. It produces the lion's share of all the non-dues and assessments revenue. So, which is good to see with golf. Of course, and as I don't know if anyone saw the town hall meeting where we discussed the 2022 budget, but Brian Krulak has produced a zero balance budget for golf, meaning golf is a break-even budget. So your operating dues for 2022, none of those operating dues are scheduled to have to supplement golf for their operations during 2022, which is good. And also anything that golf makes, like when golf turns the net income, then that net income also contributes to operations as well. But I would say in terms of the financial statements, those would be the major highlights for them.
Okay. Does anyone on the committee have any questions for Joel?
Am I on a speaker right now so you can hear me, Kim?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good, good, good. Well, I don't really have a question, but maybe this is a time to just tell Joel, Joel, I think you are doing a great job. It is just a pleasure to have you in this role. That's all I want to say.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. He knows his stuff.
He knows his stuff and he's straightforward and really very personable.
Yeah, thank you.
With us.
And Gail, you can make as many comments as you like, actually.
Make them
Did you
often.
mean to say compliments, Joel?
Well,
Comments, either one of them. You can do as many as you'd like in written form, in verbal form.
yeah, that's just a matter of semantics,
That is true. Well, it looks like our other finance committee member did not turn up. So as far as moving on to voting on the capital request, Sam, we'll have to defer on that. And as AJ suggested, just move it over to the board meeting, which is on the 26th. So we'll have you show up there. And thanks for showing up and hanging in there, giving us an opportunity to see that. Go ahead, AJ.
We maybe just let Sam kind of present his proposal. If Gail has any questions, like we can't vote on it, obviously, since we don't have a quorum, but I think we could still, discuss it or whatever. And, we can come with,
Do we have any community members who are paying attention who want to hear this?
We do have one person that is watching, one attendee. Welcome, Trang is here. So sure, Sam, go ahead and go over your requests for us.
Sounds good. So this is a request for capital funding for the purchase of 42 new pool filter disc covers with Velcro from the Recreation Special Assessment. So just for some background, the pools at Sun Valley have reopened this summer for the first time and have been out of commission since COVID restrictions began about a year and a half ago. SESCO has identified that some of our pool filters for the main pool have failed. There are 2 banks of these filters, 21 on each bank, making 42 filters total. 21 of these 42 were replaced in 2016, and those ones are good for now. The other half have been in use for even longer than that and are beginning to fail. SESCO has been sewing them back together so the covers stay on. But when it's time to clean the filters, the covers must be removed. So he's having a lot of, our pool technician's having a lot of trouble cleaning the filters. He's actually not able to right now because he's been having to sew them back together every time he takes them off. So they're becoming increasingly worn and broken. And SESCO is currently, like I said, sewing them back together. And if it was continued in this current state, it would likely result in them falling apart and being unusable. Sesco has advised us that the filter covers that were replaced in 2016 still appear to be acceptable and in working order, but the other half absolutely do need to be replaced as soon as possible. After doing some research, have found out that the zipper covers are actually becoming non-existent, and the Velcro covers are becoming the norm at pools pretty much everywhere. I've gotten a quote from Sesco for the alternative Velcro covers instead of the zippers for replacement. The zippers are apparently, like I said, the outdated way of doing things, and everyone's moving towards Velcro. It's recommended that we replace all the covers now to bring them up to date, rather than replace them half now and wait for the already 6-year-old covers to fail sooner than later, which will require more hours of labor and time to complete. Doing this will ensure that the main pool will be safe, sanitary, and functional for as long as possible, as well as saving us some money compared to the option of replacing half now and half later. If this was accepted right away, it would take some time to order or for the order to arrive and for the replacement to be completed. And then the procedure would be delayed until after the pool season due to the need for new bids. And the pool's filters haven't been able to be getting cleaned as of right now. He's just bumping them, which means emptying the water out of the filter culvert and then filling it back up and using the turbulence from filling it back up to knock off the clogged filters. If a clogged filter occurs, we may be unable to clean the pool and it may close for a period of time during the season. And like I said, Sesco's been bumping the system without draining or washing the pit, and the filter discs the zippers continue to fail. So a bunch of zippers pulled open and won't zip anymore, like a worn out jacket. If they don't seal, then they add the 35 or number 35 of Delicate for filtration, and it will blow out into the pool. So they need to be sealed. So providing the funding to purchase the parts and the labor for installing the 42 pool disc filter covers with Velcro, we request $5,192.46 before taxes, with an 8.7% tax rate. The tax will be $385.06, which brings the total to $5,577.52. And that is before the cost of $100 of freight. So we want to request that we replace all 42 filters now. This will take an estimated around 7 hours of labor time, and Sesco has quoted us at $109 per hour for the labor to replace the filters. If we replace all 42 filters now rather than half later, the quoted rate we'll be saving $108.50 in labor. So I move to approve the amount of $5,677.52 from the CRF fund that are necessary for the replacement of the 42 pool filter disc covers with Velcro.
That's the motion. Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate your work on making very thorough request and, itemizing everything and helping us understand, 21 versus the 42. Does anyone have any questions for Sam on this request?
I don't have a question, but if we had a quorum, I would vote to approve.
So in the request line, you have 5,577, and then is the extra $100 in the motion the freight charge? Is that what it is?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the labor associated with their time to do all the switching out and stuff is just billed through the Cisco contract? Or is that included in the total up above?
That is included in the total.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I mean, Do we have any idea, or how long have we had the older ones? Do we know that? What
I
is kind
asked,
of the useful life of these things?
so I asked Dennis about that, and he's only been at our pool since 2016, he said. And then before that, I think he said that his best guess was that they've been used since 2010, but he doesn't know either, and I don't have the information on that. But the Velcro ones last a lot longer. So hopefully, if this goes through, it should last a lot longer than the zippers have lasted.
I just want to commend him for being gracious enough for sewing them every time he comes out to clean them. I'm like,
I mean, yeah, he hasn't been charging us for the extra labor. And with this problem happening, he's actually been doing extra labor. So this will actually save us money in the end.
yeah, I mean, he's going above and beyond the call of duty on that step.
He's great. Dennis is an awesome guy. So yeah.
Any other questions or comments on that request? Of course, we will have to move that to the board meeting on the 26th, but I appreciate the thoroughness of the explanation.
I think it just somewhat makes sense to replace all of them. I mean, the costs is, for half of them is, more than if you doubled that cost, and then when we buy them down the line, they'll be even more expensive then than they are now. So, and it seems more prudent to have all of those things on one timeline of replacement schedule, not this alternating thing. But yeah, I think we can, just move it forward to the board without an approval or not approval from the finance committee, and just let the board make the decision. And we can tell the board that, the 3 finance committee members that were here supported the replacement of all of them.
Yeah, most that are here.
I mean, you can tell from the pictures, even the ones that aren't like, ripping necessarily and stuff, still look like they're getting pretty haggard.
Yeah. Are there any other questions or comments for Sam before I guess we move on to community questions?
I'm assuming we could just, like, if we purchased all of them and replace them, I'm assuming the ones that are still in good shape we could keep in some sort of storage as a backup in case things fail down the line or something. At least if there's ones that are in,
Decent shape.
in relatively decent shape in comparison to some of the ones in the pictures.
Yeah, Dennis is really good at holding on to stuff, spare parts. So he's crafty. But yeah, we'll save them.
Yeah, thanks for adding the pictures. I think that was really helpful too, to be able to see what the circumstance, what they look like.
Thank you all for listening. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Sam.
Always good to get a little practice run on the presentation too. So a
I'm new
lot
at
less
this.
people watch the finance committee meetings than the board meetings. So
Yeah, that's true. Hey, there's people watching. Trang's here. And so I wanted to ask John if open it up to the one community member that we have to see if he has any questions and wants to come over.
If you'd like to come on over, just use the raise hand feature in Zoom and we'll bring you into the meeting. But yes, we do have just the one attendee tonight.
Yeah. She said she's good. Thanks for the offer. Okay. All right. Well, is there anything else for the good of the order? Otherwise, this will be the shortest finance committee meeting ever.
move to adjourn.
All right. Second. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Sam and Joel